Hey, welcome back to another episode of Razorback Reels. I'm Adam Roberts.
And I'm Aaron Emsall.
And we have a lot of great reviews for you, so stay tuned. This was a very enjoyable weekend at the movies for the most part.
Yeah, it was. It had all good movies for the most part.
I mean, after the last few weeks have been so bad, this was very refreshing.
For sure.
And our first review that we're going to bring to you is Burn After Reading by the Coen brothers.
Him?
No, before.
Him?
Yeah, he might not be a loser.
How can you tell?
That's a Brioni suit.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Does he look like he would have a sense of humor?
Looks like his optometrist has a sense of humor. What does he do?
State Department.
Oh, that's cool.
His hair is... What is that?
Plugs?
Burn After Reading, starring Brad Pitt, Frances McDormand, George Clooney, John Malkovich, Tilda Swinton, pretty much everybody. It's the Coen brothers who did No Country for Old Men. They're sort of a spoof on the paranoid political thriller. And I thought this was just fantastically funny. It's very, very dark comedy. If you enjoy, dark humor, that you have these horrible situations that are somehow really funny, then you'll enjoy this movie. I thought it had a lot of the same themes behind No Country for Old Men, sort of, irrational evil and everything, but in a completely different tone than that movie. I really enjoyed it. I was laughing the almost entire time. I thought it was very cleverly written, like all of their movies are.
Yeah, definitely. And the one guy you missed out there was J.K. Simmons, who is great as usual, and you might remember him from Juno. He got a great part, and he had another great part this time, playing the chief of the CIA, and he really came through. And like Adam said, this movie was zany, typical Coen brothers comedy, like they're known for, with always that twist of the macabre in there. They always bring it to you in a surprising manner, and there's always a little bit of a twist that you're not expecting as well with the Coen brothers, and Burn After Reading was no exception, and it was excellent. I mean, I thought it started a little slow at the beginning, and I thought, I don't know, how's this going to be? I was a little unsure about Clooney's performance at the beginning. I thought it was a little over the top, actually, and kind of strayed from the rest of his performance, but he ended up putting in a solid performance.
Right. I mean, all their movies sort of take on a different location in America and really get into what makes that area unique, whether it's Minnesota or Los Angeles, Arizona, and here you have Washington inside the Beltway.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a really great job of this, at least how we view Washington, everybody in their dark sunglasses with state secrets walking around.
Yeah, that shot where it zooms down and then it has them walking in, footsteps. I mean, that's just a classic, like Cloak and Dagger kind of feel to it as you go in there. And Brad Pitt, I think he's a great actor. I thought he was really funny in this movie.
This is one of the best roles I've ever seen him in. It was fantastic.
Yeah, Brad Pitt was great, and his hair was great. I mean, it's a reminiscence of, like Cool World or Johnny Suede from like back in the early 90s, And his hair came through for us on this one as well.
I mean, it's one of those movies where, it reminded me a little bit of a Christopher Guest movie where you just go from story to story and all these characters that are developed so well as individuals. And I guess from what I understand, they didn't do hardly any improvisation. This was really scripted that well. And of course, they've won other Oscars for best screenplays too, so it comes as no surprise.
Yeah, what makes the characters work so well is that the story is developed so well.
Right.
Without that, combination of the two, there's no way this movie succeeds as well as it does. And with all the different characters all being individualized and all having good parts, that work, this movie is a big success, and that's the reason why I gave it an A.
I mean, I gave it an A- just because I don't like to give out A's unless it's, like the best movie ever. But this is something
that's A+.
I highly recommend to everybody. I mean, even if you didn't really like No Country for Old Men, you should still see it. It's a lot like some of their earlier movies, like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou or Fargo. But even if you didn't like those, this does have a slightly different tone than even those ones. So I think you might enjoy it.
Yeah, it's definitely a step up from like the Intolerable Cruelty.
Right.
That
Much
part
more
of their
negative than anything I've seen from them too. There's no good guy in this movie.
Yeah, definitely. It was a great movie.
And then another movie that I was surprised to enjoy was Tyler Perry's The Family That Prays.
Chris, Andrea's husband.
It's been a long time. How you doing?
Yeah.
Hi. I'm Abigail Dexter.
Abigail, nice to meet you.
Andrea, I didn't know that you were married. So I guess we'll be seeing you at the gala.
Gala?
The opening of the Prestige building.
Oh, wow. No, She didn't tell me about that side.
No. Shame on you, Andrea.
The Family That Prays is one of Tyler Perry's first forays into serious movies. He's best known for his Medea comedies, and he's not, in the critical community, he's looked out very, very badly. And so I went into this expecting to see a horrible film, and so I was very pleasantly surprised to see how well this was constructed. It felt at times like a bad soap opera, especially there were a few scenes where it seemed like the lighting was exactly out of a soap opera. And I think he needs to do a lot more work before he can become a B or an A director. But I thought this was a really good effort. The stories were all well crafted. And a lot of these situations, thinking in my head, there's no way this should be working, but he somehow is able to pull it off in his script. And there were a lot of times that it was over the top, but that's the sort of movie that it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be the sort of movie that's really sappy, and you come out of it crying and everything. And it didn't get there for me, but I think I gave it a C because of all the potential I saw in it. I think maybe if he would have let somebody else polish up the loose edges, maybe let somebody else do the directing and just let him write. And once he realizes, I guess, the limits of his own craft, I think he can churn out a much higher quality product than he is right now.
Well, I certainly hope so. I can't say that I'm dying to see it, but maybe eventually we'll see. I didn't really care for Diary of a Mad Black Woman. I think that's the only one that I've actually seen, but
I'm curious to pick up some of his comedies now after seeing this. I mean, when I was sitting there in the movie theater, I was thinking, this reminds me, and I don't want to use his name and Ingmar Bergman's in the same sentence.
Ingmar Bergman, Tyler Perry.
But it has the same family dynamic, I think. He's trying to get at the same central issues, obviously in a much different way, but I think Tyler Perry has a lot of potential. And if he's going to be around making movies for a few more decades, I think in 20 years we could be talking about him as a really fine director if he continues to progress.
What would you call it? An inspirational film, would you call it?
I could see how it would be inspirational for a lot of people.
Well, speaking of inspirational films, our next film is Hamlet 2, starring Steve Coogan.
I'm having a herpes outbreak right now, but you never know it. Thanks, Herpicol.
Are you tired, overweight, lacking energy? Do you wish you could look and feel young again? You can by unlocking the power of natural juice with Jack LaLanne's Power Juicer. We juiced with this other juicer and look how much work it takes feeding the small shoot.
All right, well, watching that, you might think this is just a parody of infomercials and spoofs throughout it, but actually there's more to it, there's a lot more to it. It's the story of Steve Coogan playing this inspirational drama teacher with only 2 students in his class, and he loves to make remakes of great movies like Aaron Brockovich and make adapted to the theater. But then he kind of gets to a point where the school doesn't quite approve of those and the little local critic and the 14-year-old film critic or stage critic doesn't approve of it as well. So he decides to write his own, and that is Hamlet 2. And again, the school doesn't approve of that, and because of its questionable content and the hijinks and hilarity that ensues is what really makes this movie so funny. I mean, this movie's absurd, it's silly, but it's very funny, and it works way more often than it fails in this movie.
It reminded me a lot of The Producers just because it's about trying to put on a really horrible play. And it's Steve Coogan as character. I think it has just the perfect balance between tragedy and comedy because he has some really horrible things happen to him and you emphasize with him, but you never get into where you're actually laughing at him for having horrible things happen. So it's very tough to do, and I haven't seen it done so well as I have in Hamlet 2.
Yeah, outside of like Catherine Keener and Amy Poehler.
Right.
I mean, even David Arquette's not that well known of an actor. But it's mostly like a student unknown cast, and I think the cast does a good job of portraying this kind of naiveness to theater, and at the same time trying to find themselves in the era of like Dangerous Minds. You know, he talks about Dangerous Minds and Dead Poets Society, and tries to to bring it there. And
that is the thing I did have a little problem with, is just early on in the movie, he's talking about, he's the teacher, he's going to inspire students, so he says, we're not going to be like Dead Poet Society. He's just saying, okay, maybe this is going to be a parody of those types of movies. But by the time it got to the end, it turned out it really was a Mr. Holland's opus, only with jokes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Right.
It comes out to be more like the Mr. Holland's opus in the end. And of course, probably the thing everybody most remembers from this is Rock Me Sexy Jesus, the big musical number that concludes Hamlet 2, the play, the movie itself.
Which was hilarious.
Hilarious. I mean, the whole play is so absurd. It's so ridiculous. And at times, it borders on the level of being obscene, but not really. I think they don't push it over the edge to make it too obscene, and really stays within its means in order to make it funny and absurd enough to be funny, but still all right.
Right. I mean, I exactly agree with you. Like just the screenplay or the play, I'm still thinking with movies that he ends up writing for these kids to perform, seems exactly like something that a self-indulgent drama teacher might write if he's struggling with issues with his father.
Definitely.
So everything was believable and absurd at the same time. In a lot of ways, that's how Burn After Reading was as well. So I was happy with both of the comedies that we had this week.
Yeah, I really liked his job on the guitar, writing the musical as
right.
well. That was a highlight.
That was hilarious. And a movie that was not supposed to be funny, but had me laughing at a few points anyway, was Righteous
comedy.
Kill.
You sleeping well?
Not really.
Yep. You eating well?
No.
Yeah? Any recurring nightmares?
Yeah, that I'm stuck in a room with you forever.
Nope. You ever think about retiring?
You mean death with benefits? What's not to like?
You ever think about retiring?
Not really. What am I going to look forward to? Sailing my 26-footer around Sheepshead Bay? Umpiring cop softball?
How about corporate security work?
It's too dangerous.
So what are you going to do?
Maybe I'll buy a boat.
Okay, 1996 brought us Michael Mann's Heat. And that was the last time these two megastars, Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, hooked up and were in a role together, and even a scene together. In this movie, does it live up to Heat? No, not at all. Nowhere near as good as Heat, and nowhere near as well as written, which was the biggest problem in this movie. They play two buddy cops who've been on the force together a long time. Then all of a sudden, there's this serial killer going along, and everybody's a suspect, or no one's a suspect. And this whole movie's about finding out who this serial killer, who's a righteous killer, is. And this movie, like Adam said a few minutes ago, ultimately falls apart because of its over-the-top performances and the unintentional comedy that comes from the script in this movie, which is the biggest problem.
Right. I mean, you have two fantastic actors. I mean, some of my favorites of all time. And they're never allowed to show off their talent because the script is just so horrible. They have to deliver lines like, is he just killing time or killing time? And I would just be embarrassed. Did they not read over this script? They can afford to be choosy about which movies they get into, and they should have known a lot better. And even if once you get beyond the fact that we have these two stars in this movie that shouldn't have been, it's just your ordinary, boring, same old cop drama. You have a plot twist that you see coming about 10 minutes into it that's the same plot twist you see in all these movies. You have the vigilante justice morality thing that isn't even addressed in this movie. You have your stereotype cops. You have your corruption in the police force. Wow, I had no idea.
Has that happened before?
Not in any movie I've ever seen. You have your stereotypical black pimp drug dealer who seems to be in all these movies.
50 Cent.
It's the same movie that I've seen a dozen times within the last year.
Yeah, I wish this movie would have been made in like 1978 with maybe like Martin Scorsese directing it
That
instead
could have
of
been
maybe him
interesting.
writing it. Yeah, that would have been a lot more interesting. Maybe if he could have tweaked that script a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there's not even really good jobs from the supporting cast as well. 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson is a non-issue in the movie. Yeah, John Leguizamo, Donnie Wahlberg, New Kids on the Block. Oh, oh, oh. But no, that doesn't work out for them either. None of these guys really are effective in the role. And this movie's just kind of like a nothing movie. Al Pacino follows up his great 88 minutes with his two bummers in a row.
Man.
I mean, Al Pacino, I was going in wondering who's going to have the biggest over-the-top performance in this, Robert De Niro or Al Pacino, and I think Al Pacino wins hands down.
I'd have to agree with you. There were so many scenes where I was just shaking my head, wondering who Al Pacino is, why he isn't in this movie, who he got to pretend to be him. It was just... If you're a huge fan and you have some weird obsession with having to see every movie they've been in, see it. Otherwise, definitely skip it.
Which is why I gave it a C, because I do love both these guys. They're two of my favorite actors from the 70s and the 80s. But yeah, this is ultimately disappointment. There's some memorable moments. I actually thought Robert De Niro was serviceable in this. He was all right.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, they weren't awful. It was just so disappointing.
Yeah.
I mean, if this was some no-name actor that played the role, I'd be like, they're okay. But if it's Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, I'm like, come on, you can do better than that.
They even try to do a little homage to Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro's soliloquies, in the background talking about, his life and everything. But yeah, this movie doesn't work, really.
Well, we do have a few more movies to talk about, but we are going to take a 2-minute break. We have a trivia question for you to think over. Who was the only actor to win Best Actor in the Academy Awards for playing Hamlet? Only been one. Razorback Reels is made possible by our friends at AMC Fiesta Square, where movies are just $4 every day and night, Monday through Thursday, and $4 before 4 o'clock on the weekends.
Believe in shooting stars, but she believe in shoes and cars.
Entertainment, fashion, and Hollywood gossip. Tuesdays at 7 p.m. right here on Channel 14.
The Sports Advantage, Thursday at 9 on UATV.
And the only actor to win an Academy Award for Best Actor for playing Hamlet is Laurence Olivier in his 1948 movie, which he directed himself.
And it won Best Picture that year, so.
And he's also the only person to win an Oscar for playing a Shakespearean role. So it's really kind of surprising. I had thought there had been more before I looked all that up.
Well, we'll see if Hamlet 2 has the same success.
I sort of doubt that.
Yeah, I sort of doubt
we'll
that's gonna
find out,
happen.
I suppose.
I agree.
Well, there were already at least one movie that I thought I was going to hate and ended up loving, Tyler Perry's. And so The Women was another one that I was surprised about.
Oh, amazing. You're here on time.
Hey,
Hi.
what do you mean? I'm always on time. You're the one who's late.
You put that thing away.
So impressive turnout. Congrats.
Well, thanks for opening up your Rolodex.
Hey, what are best friends for? What's wrong? Nothing. Why are you asking?
You just looked at me funny. What's going on?
Nothing?
Yeah, something. Your eyes just shifted. You're not telling me something.
I tell you everything. And what's with you?
All right, The Women, starring Meg Ryan, Annette Bening, Jada Pinkett Smith, and so many other people that I'm not even going to try. And this is really great because just last week I was talking to one of my friends about how disappointed I was that there aren't any women that have the roles of protagonists in mainstream Hollywood movies. And this is one where you have women in all the roles. And you have some of the best actresses at the top of their game here. It's a remake of a 1939 movie. And I haven't seen the original one, but you can still sort of pick up about how it has sort of the same situational comedy, even if you don't have the snappy dialogue in there. And I actually enjoyed this movie. There were quite a few other guys in there that weren't with their wives or girlfriends, and I enjoyed it. It was a little bit quirky. It was an over-the-top comedy. You know, all the actresses are really allowed to get out there and shine. Annette Bening I especially liked. The problems I had with it were that it had a lot of tone shifts. All of a sudden it went from a really hilarious scene to something overly sappy. And you can't make a movie that's both hilarious and sappy unless you're a very talented writer. And as good as Diane English is, she's not that great of a writer. She both wrote and directed this film, and I always am happy when we see a studio allow a woman director to be on, because Hollywood is notorious for being so male-centered. But I think she really needed a few more rewrites in this. There were a lot of tone problems. There was a lot of uneven dialogue in here. So while I really enjoyed this movie, I don't think it lived up to its full potential. So that's why I gave it a C+, whereas I really enjoyed it maybe at about a B level.
Yeah, well, again, I wasn't looking, like Family That Prays, I was not looking forward to this one, and I did not catch this one this week. But I don't know, Adam's given it such good reviews, maybe I'll check it out. Now, while Adam's estrogen level was boiling over with the women, my estrogen level went up just a few notches when seeing Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
You're asking us to fly to Oviedo and back?
No, we'll spend the weekend. I'll show you around the city, and we'll eat well, we'll drink good wine, we'll make love.
Yeah, who exactly is going to make love?
Hopefully the three of us.
Oh my God.
I'll get your bill.
Jesus, this guy, he doesn't beat around the bush. Look, senor, maybe in a different life.
Why not?
Okay, Woody Allen is back with this movie. This is a sexy, sharp, funny triangle, love triangle. No, make that a tetragon, because there's 4 romantic interludes going on here with 4 really good leads that really steal the show. You got Javier Bardem, coming off from his Anton Chigurh character, playing a completely different character in this one, whereas the Don Juan character, and he's the ultimate Don Juan in this movie. He really plays this part perfectly, I think. Then you got Scarlett Johansson, who normally as an actress I really can't stand. She's beautiful, of course, but as an actress she's usually subpar. In this movie she's actually serviceable. She actually works at her role well, and it happens. Rebecca Hall, who's someone I wasn't familiar with at all, who I consider a newcomer, she was great in this. She was the Vicky and Scarlett was the Christina. And then you got Penelope Cruz in this, who really steals the whole movie, who I think is probably going to get a Best Supporting Actress nod with this one, because she is really great as the Psycho X of Javier Bardem. In this movie, it's all about this big, lovers quarrel, lovers back and forth, and this movie keeps you entranced the whole way through. From within about 10 minutes, you're locked into the story, you're glued in, and you want to know what happens, and it feels real throughout the whole movie. You never get bored. You see the trials, the ups and downs that they're traveling throughout. Beautiful scenery of Barcelona. Now, Woody Allen's making this movie because he's getting a tax break, and the only reason he's actually able to make movies anymore, because he's had such a dry spell, is to make them overseas, like with his previous efforts with like Scoop and Match Point, which was all right. And this movie, though, is much better than any of those. And I think this is the first great Woody Allen movie since the 80s, maybe.
Well, I skipped this one just because Woody Allen has been such a disappointment to me lately. His stuff in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, I just absolutely love, and so it's painful to watch his modern stuff. But I might pick this one up now. I just worry because some of the reviews I'd read before talking to you said that Woody Allen ended up coming across as his aged hippie, still trying to preach free love and being all negative, like he's been throughout his career. Does it seem dated in that way at all?
I really don't think so. Of course he's going to be preaching free love. That's what he likes to do. That is Woody Allen. We all know he's weird when it comes to his romantic interludes. He's definitely a weirdo. But I think this movie really works. There's a narrator in this movie, which sometimes people don't really care for. And even though it's kind of a weird Texas Chainsaw Massacre sounding narrator, like if you've seen the remakes, they kind of almost sound like the same person there. But it really works in this. I end up kind of being unsure at first, but I really kind of like the narrator edge to it.
Well, my DVD pick of the week, if you don't have time to go to the theater, if you already have, is something everybody needs to see, Airplane.
Sir, I've never been up in a plane before. You ever seen a grown man naked?
Do you want me to check the weather, Clarence?
No, why don't you take care of it? Joey, you ever hang around the gymnasium?
We better get back now, Joey.
No, Joey can stay.
All right, Airplane. It's one of the funniest movies ever made for sure. It's sort of a spoof on old Cary Grant movie Airport, which people only know now because of Airplane. And it's made by the Abrams, Zucker, and Zucker team, which have turned out, scary movies and quite a few other spoofs. But this is their best movie for sure. And they do have, this is the reason I brought it up, in October, they have a movie called An American Carol coming out. And it's sort of a take on A Christmas Carol, only it's making fun of liberals the entire time. You have Michael Moore standing in for Scrooge, and he goes through like the ghost of American past. Kelsey Grammer's playing George Washington, and so that'll be really entertaining. We've showed Michael Moore's films, or clips from his films, quite a few times on here, so it'll be fun to see how he's satirized there.
Yeah, that does sound interesting. Yeah, I love Airplane as well. I mean, the only problem I have with Airplane is because of Airplane, we have movies like disaster movie, superhero movie, and all those horrible things that come out every year now that take advantage of every genre in the world possible. But this is a great movie. My favorite Kareem Abdul-Jabbar role for sure. But no, there's so many great cameos and characters throughout this movie that you can't go through this movie without finding some kind of laughter, that you'll
right.
enjoy. I
Something for everybody's going to laugh at this movie. If you don't laugh at one joke, you have a joke coming up in half a minute that's going to make you laugh.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, my DVD pick of the week is a little different. It's a movie that came out in theaters, although probably not around here or anywhere you've seen it, but a few theaters in big cities. Shotgun Stories.
Sidney Moncrief and Corliss Williams.
What about Joe Johnson?
Nah, he only played a year and a half.
Yeah.
I can fix that.
I can take that out for you.
What would I listen to it?
Okay, that's Shotgun Stories, and it's directed by Jeff Nichols, who, as maybe you could foreshadow there, he's from Arkansas. He was born and raised in Arkansas, and this movie's set in Arkansas. It's set in southeast Arkansas and England, Arkansas. And this is a really good indie film in the realm of David Gordon Green, who was an executive producer on this film and also a friend of Jeff Nichols. This movie is about two sets of half-brothers that basically feud after their father dies. And it's basically the consequences of revenge that go on. I actually heard somebody say that this was a hick version of Boys in the Hood, and it almost actually works as far as quality. As far as quality, because I think Boys in the Hood's a great revenge kind of feuding movie.
Right.
But this movie has really good supporting performance from pretty much all newcomers, except for the lead performance, who's by Michael Shannon, who's not a well-known character, but he's been in a lot of small roles, and he had a big role in World Trade Center.
Right,
and,
somebody you'll recognize, but no idea.
He's one of those that guys, like, who's
right.
that guy? Right. But another thing that really stands out in this movie is Jeff Nichols' brother, Ben Nichols, is the lead singer of a band called Lucero, which I know is a Fayetteville popular band that plays here quite often. And they did the theme and they did the score to this movie, and it's really somber and really melancholy and really kind of brings the whole film together. And this movie is an excellent movie for you to check out with a lot of Arkansas roots to it.
Right. Well, two movies to check out for sure, along with some of the other ones we recommended in theaters. Now, thank you so much for joining us this week. We're here every Monday night at 8. And also thanks to our friends at AMC Theaters, Fiesta Square. Definitely check them out when you get the chance. Now, I'm Adam Roberts.
And I'm Aaron Imsall.
Be sure to check out RazorbackReels.com. See you next week.